Welcome to Dad Space. Space for Dads by Dads. Today we have a Marine, a U.S. Marine on the podcast. He now works from home and has time for his son, his family. Great to talk to a U.S. Marine. I'm so thrilled and honored to speak to anyone who serves. Thank you for your service. If you are out there, we appreciate you. Ron Nussbaum is here with us today. Ron has a business, but we're not talking business. We're talking family. We're talking Lego. Yeah. Why are those little extra pieces included? I have no idea. Who follows the instructions? Ron fills in all the gaps for us. Here on Dad Space. Join us. It's great to have Ron on today on the podcast. Ron is going to share his thoughts. And again, so happy to talk to anyone who has served their country. If you're listening, thank you. Thank you for what you do every single day. We're going to talk a little bit about Ron's switch from commuting to work on a regular basis and the time that he's gotten back by not commuting. He shares great insight, and Ron is just a wonderful guy to talk to. And we actually make mention of a book. We were going to talk about the book that he wrote as well in this podcast, but our conversation just led us down the road of just focusing on dad. So we're doing that. Guys, there's another episode coming from Ron on Living the Next Chapter, our other podcast. And you can go over there later and you can hear Ron talk about his book. But today, Dad Space, it's all about you. It's all about dads. And it's all about Ron. Again, to the U.S. Marines, the Marine Corps, and all those who serve. Thank you. Here we go. Here's Ron. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I have a guest with me today. He is a dad working from home, enjoying that new lifestyle. And he's also an author. So we got lots to talk about today, which I'm excited about. Ron is here with me today. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. Where are you in the world, Ron?
I am in Emerald Isle, North Carolina.
Oh, look at that. North Carolina. Okay, what is the best thing about North Carolina? I need to know.
I've been here for about 40 days. We actually just sold our house, packed everything up, and moved from Michigan down here. The best thing is being by the ocean, and the weather is amazing.
Beautiful. Awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about your family, Ron?
Yeah, so me and my wife have been married for coming up on 15 years. We met while I was in the Marine Corps in North Carolina. That's kind of what brought us back down to this area. We know about it. And then I have a 4-year-old son that is the craziest little boy I have ever met, that has more energy than anybody can keep up with. And it's fantastic. It really is.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about your service, Ron, with the Marine Corps. Like, I'm always curious about, some of the things that you were exposed to, what you learned from your experience there. And
yeah,
I really do honor servicemen and women. That's amazing. So thank you, first of all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. A lot of times people don't know what to say. I just started going with thank you, because it is appreciated at the end of the day. So I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. I was in the infantry. I was a rifleman, one deployment over to Iraq, and it was great. I wouldn't trade any of that for anything. The guys I met, the life, it was amazing. I went in I went in a little bit older than most, but I felt like it was a box I had to check. And I had to do. So I gave up a lot to make that move. And without doing that, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you right now, because it was my bunkmate at Paris Island in the School of Infantry that actually introduced me to my wife. So if I were to have made the decision that that's what needed to happen and I needed to go be a United States Marine, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation.
It's amazing. Tell me a little bit, Ron. I'm always curious because there's always the movies and stuff on Amazon about Marines and stuff. And I know it's Hollywood's version. I know that. But is there just the training that you go through to become a Marine? Can you touch on a little bit of how the training to become a Marine changed you and changed your how you think and how you live? Is there any like big moments that you had in that training process?
No, I think what it did was it just makes you a better person at
Yeah.
the end of the day. It highlights all your positive strengths and it teaches you how to bring that out of yourself.
Mm.
The discipline, I fit in very well in the Marine Corps environment. My personality, I am a A-type go-getter. I have a high discipline. So moving into that environment, I thrived. That worked for me. I didn't have any problems with that. Some people do. I mean, I will say, you look at the movies, all of that stuff. At the end of the day, Marines, we're the baddest guys that walk the planet, especially the infantry guys and the guys I served with. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the one thing that's true is I can say I'm a United States Marine. No one can ever take that from me, and that's why I went down that road and became one, because I didn't want to not, and then later on in my life, regret that.
The one thing I love, which seems to be a similar theme anytime you see anything with the Marines on film, is I love when they can be together in a group without saying a word, a simple tap on the back and just some hand signals, and you just know where your team is, and everyone has a role and everybody works together and everybody carries out their part and you trust each other. Like,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And that's built from just spending time together. I mean, you spend your entire life with these guys, and that's what's amazing. I've fallen out of contact. I'm not a good communicator at all when it comes to long distance relationships and stuff. And I'm trying to get better at that. And I'm trying to reach out and, bring some of those relationships back. But I got on a phone with a guy I hadn't talked to in 7-8 years. That was one of my best friends when I was in the Marine Corps. Me, him, his wife, my wife, we did everything together. Their little son hung out with us all the time. And I got on the phone with him and it was like we didn't miss a beat.
Nice.
Like we had still been around each other for the last 7 years. So it's pretty amazing the bonds that you create. Most people can't list a person that they would drop everything and fly across the country for in a heartbeat. Most Marines, that list is so long that it's over. People wouldn't even believe it. But there's a lot of guys out there that if they called me up and needed me somewhere, we needed to do something, I'd be the first one getting involved.
Geez, I think we do a whole podcast just on this theme. I love talking to you about this and hearing your stories, Ron. It's very inspirational. Thank you again for serving. It's amazing to talk to you about this.
Yeah, thank you.
So you're a stay-at-home dad, and before we hit record, you were telling me about all of the great things about being a stay-at-home dad, which we'll touch on. But there's got to be something that's a little bit like odd for you to be now in this season of your life working from home, and something's got to be different for you than you weren't really expecting. Tell me about what it's like to work from home, maybe some of the good and some of the odd things that you're experiencing right now.
I would say, the odd would be that you're at your house. One of the crazy things, so I spent over a decade, not only in the construction industry, but I was driving an hour back and forth every day. So, it was an hour, that's 2 hours out of my day I spent on the road in a car by myself. So losing that's something that I used to like, that time to be able to just think and enjoy the time by myself. I'm not a big radio listening to person. So I would either listen to podcasts or books on tape or listen to nothing and just be with my own thoughts or make some phone calls, which was typically work involved. So continuing to work on my drive home. So losing that has been something that I've had to learn to kind of space that myself. How do I go get that time? So, right now it's getting up and going and running in the morning by myself. So I get some of that mental clarity time to be able to just put my thoughts together. The great things is that you're at home.
Yeah.
I'm a worker. I'm a grinder. I don't technically have an off switch. When I'm working on stuff I love to work on it. And I'll work on it from sun up to sundown and straight through the nights. And before, I would be at an office or I'd be out in the field or I wouldn't be home while I was doing that.
Yeah.
So when those breaks happened or you were taking some time and doing things, all you can do is a phone call or shoot a text message. Now I can leave my office and go spend an hour and a half with my son, my wife. We can have dinner, we can have lunch, we can go for a walk, we can go do something with that time that I'm not focusing on working. So for me, that has been absolutely amazing because now I can go spend really good quality time with my family instead of either rushing home, feeling like I should be out still doing something, or getting home late and just getting that little bit before everybody goes to bed because they're tired and they've been up all day. And that allows me to be able to have that quality time and then go back to work. I mean, everybody goes to bed and I stay up a lot of times and I'll continue on working. And that works for our relationship. And especially early on in my career, I spent a lot of time on the road. And, you know, that worked well for me and my wife because she had been through a deployment with me. So for me to be gone out in the field working Monday through Fridays or Mondays through Saturdays and coming back and being home for the weekend and going right back out into the field for the week, that worked. So I went from one extreme to another, which isn't really an extreme anymore. Being at home is something that, you know, it's catching pace. I'm the founder and CEO of my company, so I make my schedule. I make what I'm doing, and I love it. It's been fantastic for our life. It's one of the things that have allowed us to make the move down to North Carolina.
Nice.
Is that I'm not tied to a location with what I'm doing. And, you know, we wanted to get out of Michigan. Again, we got down to North Carolina and say this doesn't work out here like we think it's going to. We still have that flexibility because we're not tied to a singular area.
Yeah, that's nice. So tell me a little bit about your son.
About my son?
Yeah. I'd love to hear your relationship with him and that side of your life too. That's important as well.
Yeah. So Cash, he's crazy. He is a boy, through and through. He reminds me a lot of myself now, but he's 4 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's very determined. He knows what he wants. It's so strange to have a conversation with a 4-year-old that knows exactly, hey, this is the toy I want. And this is the toy we're going to go get. Like there's no questions in between there. Like I've already decided, and he has more energy, and I hope he continues to keep it throughout his entire life because he will run from sun up to sundown and still want more. Loves to be outside. And we go out for walks and hikes and just spending time outside. And that's one of the things that led us here. We lived on a lake in Michigan and summers were great. He would just spend all day outside. Yeah. And then winter would come and we'd be inside and he would just literally, they talk about that sad where the seasonal depression, like he would sit there and be like, I just want to be outside. And I take him out in the snow, but we can't stay out as long because he gets too cold. And it was just for him, it just didn't work. So down here, going to the beach, like that, he loves that. And going all the playgrounds and all the stuff it's just so family friendly that we get to go do this stuff. And that's what he wants to do. Like this morning, he was laying in the bed and my wife and my son and my mother-in-law went to the place where he's going to get swim lessons this morning to check it out and see if he could go swimming. And he was talking about wanting to go to the beach afterwards. And to me, that's great because I think in today's society and just the word, kids tend to want to be inside and
Yeah.
just hang out. Now, hey, he has his tablet and he loves his tablet, but I'll tell you, here, put that down in a second to go outside and go do something.
That's a nice balance. I like that. Yeah.
So yeah, we try to create that, but I mean, I think if you're anybody that has a toddler and says, oh, they shouldn't be on iPads or phones. I mean, to me, that I don't know there has to be something there for them to continue to grow their brain and get some stimulation with that as well. We spend our entire life in front of either computers or TVs. So creating some balance with that is fantastic. And I love the fact that he craves that. Like, he'll sit around on a rainy day and watch some cartoons. He just learned to put puzzles together. So that's a new big thing.
Nice.
We made the transition from Hot Wheels because all his Hot Wheels got packed up in the pod. So he's made the transition into Legos, and that's unbelievable to watch how a child's mind works, putting Legos together. Yeah. I've watched him go from having no concept to learning how to actually put the stuff together and utilizing the book, like looking in the book to try to find the pieces and put stuff together. Yeah. Just the growth with that is amazing.
Anytime I do Lego, I always have 5 or 6 extra pieces. I don't know if they do that on purpose or I'm not doing this right. But yeah, that's kind of my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So I just always say, I tell my wife, they just put those in there.
Yeah, that's just extra. Those are extra. That's my default as well. That's amazing. So tell me, Ron, who do you model your parenting after as being a dad? Is there somebody that you look up to, somebody that gives you inspiration that you're kind of saying, yeah, that's the kind of dad that I want to be for my kid?
I think I look at my dad, my father-in-law, just great men that I have had the honor to be around in my life, whether growing up around some of my dad's friends in the leadership that was in his circle to the great guys I was in the Marine Corps with, and watching guys juggle a family and being in the Marine Corps. I think I take a lot from all of that. And I just try to be patient. I think that's what a lot of older generations had, was a lot more patience with their kids. Because as they went out and did things, a lot of times kids were very independent, which Cash is. He's an independent kid. I mean, he wants people around, but he doesn't have to have people around. And you used to see, like I see with my father-in-law and my dad, how they would have patience with people and just have the most upright integrity about what's going on and just be honest about it. But at the same time, allow people to make their decisions. And, if it's something that's not going to kill somebody, kind of let them learn from it a little bit. Have that patience to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think having that inspiration as a dad is always important. You need to find some way, because this is your first time being a dad, right? Cash doesn't come with a book. He doesn't come with a manual like a Lego set, right?
No,
it's Cash. Here it is. Here he is. Now you figure it out.
Yeah. And I would say, brethren, I'm a self-learner. I just self-development all the time. I have my entire life. Just read, listen. That's why I don't think there's one singular person I look at.
Okay.
I just look at the collective whole. I think everybody does things really, really good. And it's all about trying to take that one thing that makes you better, whether that's as a dad, as a husband, as an employee, or as a boss or manager or leader or anything. It's always about finding that one thing that somebody does that takes you to the next level and allows other people to thrive. I want to see Cash thrive in life, and I want to be the catalyst for that. I want to set him up on that platform so he can take off and he can go do whatever he would like to go do. And I'm going to support him in that.
Yeah. And I love that you're talking about where you're getting your resource and information from, books and listening. That's the idea behind our podcast, is we wanted dads to come on and share their story, encourage other dads. So if there's a dad out there with a 4-year-old who identifies and listens to you and goes, that's my son, that's my daughter, they're just like Ron's kid. I want to be able to create a space for dads to share their story. And that's the idea behind the podcast. So having you on today, like, it might seem like you're just talking about general things that are you, but you're helping people just by sharing your story and inspiring other dads. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that, being a dad is a great calling, and it's something that should be taken seriously and at the same time be taken lightheartedly, to be able to have that relationship. I think there's too many extremes out there that are cast upon dads, where you're way over the top or you're not enough of a dad. And I think everybody just has to find their own groove, and creating communities like what you're working on doing is a fantastic way to start doing that, because everybody's not the same in anything that you do, but that's okay. Like, you don't have to be Ron. You can be yourself.
Yeah.
I don't have to be my dad or my father-in-law or other men that have been in my life. I don't have to be them. I just have to be the best Ron I can be every day for my son and for my wife.
Yeah.
Because I think being a dad is as much about your relationship with your son as also what it looks like with your wife's significant other, or even say an ex or something like that. I mean, that relationship's critical as well to what ends up happening with the development of your son or daughter, or just your child in general.
Yeah. And what I find through listening to other dads is just that overwhelming sense that I'm creating for Cash, I'm creating a future for him. He's going to look at the way I'm fathered, the way I was a buddy, I was a pal, I was his dad, and he's going to model his future after how you interact with him right now. And you're actually creating up like your future and lineage every day by playing Lego with your son. That's amazing.
Yeah, not only am I creating that future as a collective with dads, we're creating the future generation of men and women that will lead this country and lead this world. And I think that's an important way to look at things, because there's a lot of stuff that gets lost through time because people don't take the time to talk about it. I think as fathers, we have to collectively do a better job of passing on our history and what that means from a family perspective, or where you come from, whether it's a military legacy or anything that is around your family, to continue to help grow that, because that stuff can be lost. I mean, they always say here in America, a lot of times we say, you're only one generation away from freedom going away, from that becoming extinct. Yep. I think that not only applies with, teaching our kids about the history of the word in the United States and what that looks like, but also teaching them your history and what that's about, because that's only one generation away from going away. I mean, especially with how today's world works, everybody's all over the place. You don't have those close knit families where everybody lives in the same area. So grandparents, great grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, that stuff all starts to become long distance, and then you start to lose some of that. What was that core of the family?
Yeah.
What is that family's legacy or the family's history? What does that look like?
Yeah. Like going way back in time and your whole family would settle together in a certain area and you'd be like 2 doors down from your relatives. And that was normal. Now,
Yeah.
again, you're across the country and you don't get to do holidays and birthdays and events together. You don't see each other quite as often. And that's another element to put in the mix for sure. Yeah, I get it. That's right.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have to make time for that. We've me and my wife have committed to finding time to go spend with my sister and her husband and their kids. I mean, with Cash and them should know each other. My brother-in-law, Corey, he said it the best, is that these kids should have the opportunity to grow up together and around each other. They live in Texas. I live in North Carolina. But we still, as parents, have to figure out how can we foster that relationship, because that is family at the end of the day. And they're all the same age.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. So I know, Ron, before we hit record, we were talking about what we would chat about today. We talked about a little bit about your business and a little bit about your book as well. So but I'm loving our conversation too. I'm afraid I'm cutting it off, to be quite honest. So I have an offer for you during the podcast here. Can we have you back just to talk about the book by itself? Because I want to give value to the book that you've written and share the story behind that. But I don't want to shift gears from our conversation, because I think you're giving so much insight for dads that I would love to just continue a little bit, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to come back.
So those listening, make sure you stay tuned, because Living the Next Chapter, my other podcast, Ron's going to come back and he's going to talk about his book, Buying for Exit. It's a great premise and you really need to hear about it. But I just want to finish up on dad spaces because it's really, really important. Ron, we like I mentioned, we're trying to build a community around the podcast to support dads. What do you feel, from your perspective, are some of the missing elements? You're a work from home dad. You're not in your same social circle, being in the office, working with your coworkers and people that work with you. So you're not having the coffee time, break time conversation in the lunchroom. You're not having lunches together with your team. So you're kind of separate yourself from your business. As a dad, what kind of things do you think that we need as men, as fathers, to build community together? How can we do life better as men, working from home and working from the office and commuting 2 hours a day? How do we build a community for men that helps men?
I think we have to be open to not necessarily being weak. Men don't wear their emotions out, and there are emotions. I believe that talking about problems that you're having with just being a dad, raising a son, like you said, this doesn't come with a manual. It's not like Legos where you have directions on exactly how to build this perfect little human. Having an open place where you can have that conversation with like-minded people that don't look at it as weakness. They look at it as a way to continue to grow themselves and have that conversation. Because I guarantee you, if it's something that you're struggling with, you're not the only one. And as men, we don't go to our spouses. We don't go to extended family. We don't search out answers to those questions other than with ourselves in our own minds. Or for me, like I said, I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of listening to books on tape and podcasts, and just trying to continue to grow my mind on that. But I'll say, I can't tell you when the last time was. I just had an open and frank conversation with another dad about something that had to do with raising my son or family life or something like that.
Yeah.
We wear, as being, and this might sound old school, but as being the men in the household, we look at it as it's our job to make sure everybody's provided for, in that we're moving this forward, and we shouldn't have any of these feelings. Well, it's natural to have them. And having a community where you can talk that out, or go have resources to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, and at least be able to look at, articles or something, or even like this podcast that said, hey, this subject, this right here is what I'm struggling with right now at this time. Being able to open the door to be able to help somebody with that. I think if we as men and as fathers and as dads let the guard down a little bit and was willing to work together, we would be able to create and make great things happen, not only for our families and our children, but for future generations as well. I mean, that's a legacy project in itself.
Yeah. And I think as dads, we're always seem to be so focused on everyone in our family, our spouse, our wife, our partner, our child, our kids. It's always like, you good? Are you good? Are you okay? Like, your spouse, are you good? And then the last person we ever think of looking in the mirror and saying to ourselves, are you good? Right? Because we're always making sure everything else is all right. Everything's running, everything's good.
Yeah.
But we're not looking at our own self and saying, hey, are you good? And I just go back to the beginning of our conversation with the Marine Corps. You guys working together as a team, if somebody's not doing or pulling their weight, there could be something tragic happen. You guys always are making sure each other are good. You're together, you're working as a unit, as a group. And it's a great model, Ron, for men outside of serving their country to learn a little bit from what you experienced and your training you've had, because we all need to kind of look at each other and make sure we're all good, but also make sure that we're coming to our families, our relationships, and that we're good as well. And hearing your story today helps kind of spark that conversation a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's a conversation. I think it's starting to happen. But like what you just said about asking yourself, like, check in with yourself at minimum. Check in with yourself. Make sure, that the weight that's on your shoulders isn't becoming too heavy.
Yeah.
And if it is, reach out to somebody. There's a lot of people out there that have been through the same thing, whether it's a problem with your child or a problem in your relationship or any of that kind of stuff. There's generations of people that have been there and done that. And none of us are perfect by any means. I think I can't overly stress that enough, is that we all have our flaws and we all have our strengths. You just got to continuously lean on what your strengths are and just try to improve on the flaws as best you can, or figure out somebody that can help with the flaws. That's what leads, I think, to a lot of success. At least for me, is I try to find people that can bridge the gap, because I'm very good at what I do, but there's stuff I'm not good at all, or just don't have the time or patience to deal with. I think that translates into being a dad as well, is finding that happy medium, saying, hey, I'm really, really good at this and I'm not good at this. And being able to just be honest about that and have that conversation with somebody can create a great impact.
So Ron, is there, like, in movie world, there's always this, no man left behind, or that kind of slogan or theme for the servicemen and women. Is there a theme from the Marines that is like a staple that, again, nobody's left behind? Is that real, or is that just imaginary?
Oh, no, absolutely. Okay. No, absolutely. There's your brothers that you're not, that's not an option at all. No. I don't, in real life, that's just known. That doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah, exactly.
It's a brotherhood. You're you're not going to leave somebody behind.
No. Ron, we're going to be ending up here in a moment. Thank you so much for making time out of your day. And when Cash gets back from his swimming and all that fun stuff that he's talking about, I hope today you get a few moments to do some Lego together.
I absolutely will.
That's amazing, Ron. So great to have you on the podcast today. A little shout out for your business, Ron. How do people connect with you through your business? How do they reach out?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of Nut Nest. I'm helping 5 million contractors reimagine exactly what customer communication can look like. To learn more about that, you can see us on our website at nutnest.com, ronwesley.com as well. Feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn, not just for business connections, but just to connect. I had an article today that I just got released that talks about kind of podcast guesting. But if you go on my LinkedIn, I put a little thing on there about making connections and building relationships. And I would love to continue to do that with your audience and with people out there. And if there's any way I can help anybody, either, like I said, professionally or personally, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. We're here to continue to grow and align with like-minded people that at the end of the day want the exact same outcome. And I believe that if you do that, you cannot not have success.
Yeah. And we're meant to meet people along our journey, Ron, who spur us on, encourage us, help us to grow. And you've done that today, Ron, helping us today on the podcast. Thank you for doing that. And for people listening, Ron's going to come back. We're going to do Living the Next Chapter very soon, because you need to also go check out his book, Buying for Exit. And it's a great book about how to buy and sell a business. I'm enthralled by this. So we're going to have a part 2. Okay, Ron?
Sounds awesome. Thank you for having me. I loved every minute of it.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, Ron. You're a great guest. I hope that you get on many podcasts. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Dad Space today. Go check us out on all of our social media, YouTube, all that great stuff. You can find us as Dad Space Podcast. Real simple. Dad Space Podcast, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube. Email us, dadspacepodcast@gmail.com. We're always looking for great guests to come on the podcast. If you have any feedback for us, let us know here at Dad Space. Looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode, right here of Dad Space. Follow us on your podcast app for more. Cheers. To you, Dad.